how to change yourself or any other person. Today we're going to talk about 2 steps that you can take when you would like to change yourself or somebody else. It actually is the same psychological mechanism, no matter if you're trying to change yourself or somebody else. So it's important to remember that our brain functions in a specific way when it comes to change. For instance, if we use fear as an incentive for change, our reaction as humans is to freeze. So if you'd like to get a new action, change into new action, then you need to have something positive to change towards. That gives us much more motivation. Also, if we feel like somebody else is trying to control our life, we sort of shut down. We would like to make the choices ourselves. That's why it's important to give other people options and give yourself some wiggle room when it comes to solving how to change and what to change. It's also important not to speak negative to yourself or to somebody else, because that's very demoralizing when it comes to change. And absolutely, as we know, to belittle anyone, and we might not dream of belittle anyone else, but many of us do it ourselves. And especially if we're trying to change and get this negative talk all the time, we sort of lose all motivation to continue. And of course, it's the same with using shame or something like that towards yourself or somebody else. We need to get off on a positive foot. So when it comes to these 2 steps you need to take, you need to have all this in mind, how we actually work when it comes to change. And then we need to prepare ourselves for this change. So first, we need to identify the change we would like to see. And you do this in 7 steps. I have the detailed step-by-step approach in the checklist, Initiate Change, where you can see how you do this all the way to start your change. So download the Initiate Change checklist. The link is down below in the description. The first step to identify the change you would like to see is to identify other accomplishments that you have done or the person you would like to see a change in has done. And this is connected to that we need to start from a positive place when we move towards change. Change can be hard, and it can also be that we feel a bit intimidated about the change. We might feel that we are not up to the task. To remind ourselves or remind another person of good things that they have done is a very strong place to start. So when you prepare for this change, you need to identify accomplishments already achieved. What have you done? It doesn't necessarily need to be closely related to this change you would like to see, but it still could be hard things that you have done in the past to remind yourself of this before you move on. And then you need to be specific and clarify what you mean to change. If you are too vague about what's going to change, you can't accomplish anything. If you just say you need to be a better human being, this doesn't motivate anyone. You need to be specific and start with the area that makes most sense, that's most important right now. If you would like, for instance, somebody to take better care of themselves physically, or if you would like somebody to get a job or to handle money better, you need to focus on that area and to start with that area. And the next step would be to examine your intention with this change? Why would you like to see this area change? And this is important because if you are looking for a positive outcome, it can motivate change. But fear, as I said before, lead to inaction. So if you do this to promote a positive outcome, it's a better start. So try to identify the positive outcome you are looking for. It might be that when you examine your intentions behind this change, that you feel that it's not really this change that is important. It might be something else entirely. And then perhaps you need to revisit what you would like to change. And then step 4 is to recognize any obstacle that may hinder this change. Often we have tried this change before. We have tried to talk to the person about that they need to change, or we have tried to change ourselves and we have failed. So we know that there are obstacles, and now we need to recognize that those obstacles are there and try to identify what they are. It might be fear, it might be other things that are standing in our way for this change. And if it's something we can do about our mindset around this change, that will make this easier for us. Step 5, you need to establish a timeline for this change. Remember, you're still just preparing for the change, so just have an idea of when you would like this change to take place. It might be over a long period, that this is a long-term change, or it might be something that you can change right away. And then identify 2 to 3 potential solutions of how to achieve this change. A number of options of how you can move towards this change. And this is to prepare yourself to see this from different angles. It might be that we become too stuck that a change can only be done in a certain way, but it might be several different options when it comes to achieving better health or achieving a financial goal. You might be able to do this in a number of different ways. So keep your mind open to this. And then the last step, number 7, when it comes to preparation for this change, is to consider small incentives that would make sense for you to provide in this process. And if it's for yourself, it might be you buy yourself a treat or something like that you know would be important to you. When it comes to incentives to other people, it can be really easy because most of us would like to be seen and heard and recognized for us trying. So if we're trying to change the behavior of somebody else, the incentives could be for you to recognize when they're trying, not only to recognize if they fail in this change, and they might do that a number of times. Recognize when they accomplished something, even small things, and recognize a way to say this to them and show it to them that you have seen it. That's not condescending, but it needs to be heartfelt and really encouraging for them. So think about the kind of incentives that you can give in a heartfelt way. Now you have prepared yourself. You have all the different arguments and you know what you would like to change. It's time for the conversation. And this could be a conversation with yourself, perhaps journaling if it's you who's going to change. But let's pretend that it's somebody else you would like to change. You would like to see action taken by another person. And let's say this is about a member of your family and you would like them to help out more around the house. And how would you do this? You sit down with them and have this conversation. And since you are prepared, you have already looked into this positive feedback, all the things that you really love that this person is already doing and trying and accomplishing and have accomplished in the past. And you start from that perspective with this person. You talk about all the beautiful things around this person and start from a positive perspective. Even though you both know that there is something else that you need to discuss because you've probably been nagging about this for a long time, you need to start on this positive note, and the other person need to feel that they are really seen in a positive light by you. Then we come to the next step, and that would be to ask what they feel about this area that need to change. And now it's time for you to listen. It's not a time for you to put anything in there. You have already thought about a lot of things in your preparation, but now it's time to listen, not to think about what you are going to say later. You need to listen to them for what they think about this. And a good way to do this is actually to listen and then ask them if you understood correctly. For instance, if they explain to you why they're not helping out, ask them what they believe should be done to address this situation. For instance, if it's about helping around the house, you could say that we have all these chores that need to be done at home, and how do you suggest that we get them done, for instance? And they might answer that they don't understand why they need to be done and so forth. And again, just listen to them and ask a curious question and mirror them in what they say, so they really know that you have listened and you have understood what they are saying. And then it's time to discuss. You already have your different options that you have thought about before, how you can solve this, but now you ask them what in specific practical terms could be done. How could we do this? How could we divide the chores, for instance? And they start with giving their point of view. And then you can see if you could discuss versions of this and negotiate a path forward that feels good both for them and for you. And you have your different options and solutions you have thought about before in the back of your mind, so you know different options that you feel happy about. And when you have agreed on a plan and a path forward, you need to establish a timeline for this implementation. For instance, we do this for the next week, and we start tomorrow and try to divide the tasks in this way. And then you also agree on how you track your progress. For instance, we might have some kind of list with the different chores, and you check everything you have done on this list, and then you sit down for a talk every week to see if it works or not, for instance. And then you need to provide an incentive for this step. You need to show the person you're talking to that you are really positive about that you had this talk. You're really happy for them that they showed up and had this discussion with you, and you find a path forward. So you're really happy about this step. And then when you start to work with this change, you need to be observant and look what the other person do and give them these small incentives. Really see efforts they have been making, not just things that they might not have done or missed. Focus on what they have done right, so they get an incentive to do more of that. So these are the two parts. So it's 7 steps to prepare yourself, and then it's 10 steps during this talk. And if this was a change with yourself, to journal about all of these steps. And you remember to keep this part with incentives even to yourself, because we humans are really motivated by these small good things that we reach. It's hard for us to have this far away goal that we might or might not get. We need these small steps and see that we really gain something from it. So try to give that to yourself or somebody else who you would like to see changing. Check out the different steps and use this initiate change checklist. I have it down in the description and you can see it here with the different steps, and also a short reminder of what you need to avoid to not demotivate the person you are trying to support changing.